What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our YouTube page. Hey, if you're new, hit the bell, subscribe, follow so you see everything we're putting out here at Rose. You can go back and watch all of our content for the last year if you missed it all. But hey, today is our 3rd year anniversary Sunday. Pretty special. We're going to be talking about the faithfulness of God. You're going to enjoy today's sermon. Have fun. Go with me to the book of Deuteronomy. If you have your Bible with you, if you don't, no worries whatsoever. We'll have on the screen for you. You can follow along and read with us. We're actually going to go through the entire chapter of Deuteronomy 8. I know that sounds like a lot, like it's like 17, 18 verses. It's honestly not a lot. But I do believe it is an incredibly prophetic and special chapter, Deuteronomy 8. And I believe it speaks so much to myself, to us in this season of our church. And we're going to go through it. But as you're turning there, Deuteronomy chapter 8, my title for my message today is simply a statement. And I think a very important one that we need to consider today, and it's this: forgetfulness is costly. Forgetfulness is costly. Once again, if you are newer to this environment, maybe even newer to a church like this, we are a rowdy bunch, if you've not figured out by yet. We enjoy yelling and worshiping, and you're, man, some of you like the karaoke is really out of control over here. It's what we call worship, and we're very passionate about it. And at any point during this message, if you feel like saying amen, you feel like standing up, you feel like throwing something at me, do whatever you got to do to get ready for the message today. I really feel like preaching today, and this has been in my mind rotatilling for 2 months now, and I do believe it's a word for our church. And so let's pray as we talk about forgetfulness is costly. God, I thank you for your word. God, I thank you for our anniversary, God, this special Sunday. Father, I pray as we go through your word, God, this amazing chapter in Deuteronomy 8, God, would your spirit reveal who you are to us today? Would you open our eyes, open our ears as we spend a few moments on your word, thinking and pondering and considering you today, God, whether every year, since opening year, whether it's we've been online the last few weeks, God, whatever it is, I pray that you would speak to us, be here today as we spend a few moments going through your word. In your mighty name I pray. And everyone said? How many have a bad memory? Anybody just want to bear witness? You just have a bad memory. You forget people's names all the time. You forget schoolwork. It's bad memory. I have a selective memory. Anybody else? Like, there's things I want to remember, and I remember them, but there's some things that just kind of go in and out. But one thing to challenge you, if you guys are obviously married or dating, is don't forget anniversaries, birthdays, things in this nature. My wife and I, Julie, who's leading this morning, this summer will be 10 years of us being married. 10 years of us, which is amazing. But I remember before we were dating. Now, we just start talking, and if you haven't figured this out yet, or you probably have if you've been around Christians got to figure this dating thing out, okay? We've made dating really awkward in the church world. Can I just be the first to say that, okay? Like, you go to coffee twice, it's like, are you guys together? It's like, we've hung out twice, okay? Like, when's the wedding? Like, okay, like, we just met at church during the prayer time. Okay, that's it. Like, we started talking to each other, okay? So me and Julie, we're talking. Okay, it's January, February, we start talking. Her birthday is April 16th. That's her birthday. I'm convinced her birthday is April 17th. I'm away preaching at a camp, and I'm going to call her tomorrow. I'm away, but I'm going to call her on her birthday. I'm going to wish her happy birthday. It's our first birthday together. I call her April 17th. Girl, happy birthday. All she says back is, thanks. And I'm like, well, that's a little rude. Like, I'm trying to call you, say happy birthday. And like, what are you doing today? She's like, nothing. And I'm like, so some of you are like, listen, my wife's from New York. She's full Italian, and she's fully emotionally unstable, okay? So she's like, why do you want to know? I'm like, because what are you doing for your birthday? She's like, nothing. I'm like, okay. It's like, hang out with friends? Nope. You having a good day? And I'm like, okay. What is going on? I was like, happy birthday. She's like, today's not my birthday. I'm like, yes, it is. She's like, no, it's not. I was like, today is your birthday. And she's like, no, it's not. I'm like, when's your birthday? She's like, it was yesterday. And guess who did not call me? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I apologize. And that little forgetfulness cost me for a few days that I had to pay back. Listen, forgetfulness will cost you. Obviously, that's a very silly and fun story, but there's probably some times in your life that forgetfulness has cost you something. 2 months ago, I'm thinking about 3rd year anniversary. Man, it's coming up. 3rd year. if you don't know me yet, you're new to the church, I'm a very positive person. Julie and I could have negative $13 in our account, and I'm like, babe, it's an opportunity for God to show his faithfulness. A miracle check is on the way. Someone's gonna bless. So like I'm a very positive person. Like you say something like, you didn't mean it. You're like, no, I mean it. I'm like, no, you don't. Come on, you don't mean that. Like, I'm a very, very positive person. But I had a moment 2 months ago, and I'm in my car on my way home, and I'm thinking third year, and I don't know why, it's months away. I'm thinking about third year, and I say to God, Lord, what do we have to celebrate? Been there? This last year, I go, Lord, what do we have to celebrate? We're celebrating not meeting for a year. We're celebrating having an empty building for a year. We're celebrating awkward hugs because we don't know who's touching, who's not touching. I go, what are we celebrating? Lord, what do we have to celebrate on this third year? Man, on my way home in the car, I felt a loud echo in my spirit. The Holy Spirit spoke back to me saying, you're celebrating that I was faithful. And you know you're celebrating this year as a third year as a church, as a family. You're celebrating that I was faithful to you. That's what you're celebrating. I was like, okay, Lord, and Deuteronomy 8 came to my mind. Context of Deuteronomy 8, Moses, the pastor of Israel. If you don't know church history, Israel was in captivity with Egypt for 430 years. They finally get out. They leave slavery. They leave captivity. They now spend 40 years in the wilderness. Right, book of Exodus, book of Numbers, 40 years. This chapter leads into the last 3 to 4 months before they get into the promised land. In other words, the pastor is looking at his church saying, our season of the wilderness is coming to an end. And I want to say some things to you. I want to say some things to our church as we enter into the season we've all been waiting for. And I felt that so deep for our church. Today, I would like to say some things to you as we lead into the season we've all been waiting for. So things that Moses said in Deuteronomy 8, I want to go just verse by verse and pull 3 things out of it today because I think it's so pertinent and so powerful to what is going on in our church. So look at Deuteronomy chapter 8. Verse 1 says, the whole commandment that I command you that you today shall be careful to do, that you may live and multiply. Go in, possess the land that the Lord swore to give to your fathers. Verse 2, and you shall remember the whole way that the Lord your God has led you through these last 40 years in the wilderness. Look at that he might keep you humble, testing you to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. And he humbled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that you might know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes out of the mouth of the Lord. For your clothes did not wear on you, and your feet did not swell over these last 40 years. First thing I want you to get from Deuteronomy chapter 8 this morning is forgetfulness will allow you to have wasted pain. Forgetfulness leads to wasted pain. If we're going to go through a year like what we just went through, we might as well take something from it. If we're going to go through a year of what we just went through and a season that we just experienced and a moment that we just had in our lifetime, we might as well take something from it. But if you leave a season and don't look back to look and think and take something from it, forgetfulness will lead to wasted pain. It will lead to wasted moments that you learn in 2020. I love Moses. He says, hey, think about this moment. 2 million people are on the verge of getting somewhere that they've been told about for 40 years. Certain people in the nation of Israel have been born in the wilderness. All they ever knew was right here. That's it. And Moses is finally saying, guys, after 40 years of wandering, we're finally going in. We're finally about to possess here in the near future. And I just want you to know the last season that you've been experiencing, it was that God would test to know what was in your heart. You know what's amazing? 2020 was a revealer to what's in your heart. Have you seen some things in your friend's heart? You're like, I did not know that was in there. It was interesting. I firmly believe that 2020 didn't create anything. It revealed what was. I don't know if 2020 created a bunch of things in us. I would more say it revealed the things that we've been hiding that are within us. 2020, man, was a revealer of people's hearts. It was a revealer of what? And he goes, it was a revealer of your heart to testing to know if you would trust God or not. That you would obey, that you believe and trust his commandments. That what? The last year has been two things for us. It's revealed our dependency and our faith. He says, every day you got fed by manna, which was Chick-fil-A falling from heaven every day, essentially. Every day. What's interesting is they couldn't take more than a day's worth because God wants them to wake up every morning and need him again. I'm not going to give you a week's worth because you won't talk to me for a week. I won't give you a month's worth because you won't talk to me for a month. So I'm going to have this go a certain way. I'm going to give you a day's worth. So every single morning you have to come back to me and remind yourself you need me. 2020 was a revealer of our testing of what's in our heart toward God. You know what's amazing? I was doing this the other day. We're going to be asked in the near future, maybe 20 years, were you there at 2020? Our children's children, and it's we taught in school at some level, what just happened. And you're to be asked, what was 2020 like? Especially in this city. You lived in Portland during 2020? Yes, I did. What was 2020 like? And now, in that moment, in that question, what was 2020 like? You have an option to lead your memory. What was 2020 like? I mean, wow, what a year, and the mask and the social distancing and the be at home and all the working from your house and Zooms and the restaurants and the schools and the riots and the racial division and the presidency, and like, wow, 2020 was a lot. What was it like? Well, it was a lot working from home, and I hate Zoom. I hope the company Zoom just doesn't happen anymore after this, and I never want to work from home. And again, I was with my kids all the time, and my spouse was there every day for a year. I couldn't go in a different room where she was not or he was not. I couldn't work anywhere. I couldn't travel. I lost my job. I got furloughed. I was upset. I had depression issues. I was alone. I was isolated. I got kicked out of school. I didn't graduate. I didn't get to have a wedding. I didn't walk down the aisle for my wedding. I didn't get to graduate my senior year of college. I lost my scholarship. Or you can say, let me tell you how faithful God was during a year. Let me tell you, when everybody else was getting let go, guess who kept their job? When every other business didn't know what to do, God put his hand on my business. When every marriage was going through difficulty, he brought us closer together. Let me tell you how close I got to my kids over a year. Let me tell you how I got near to God over a year. Let me tell you, what was 2020 like? It was a year when God showed me I will be faithful. When you get asked that question, you have a choice to go, what was 2020 like? What was the year like? Let me tell you what it was like. It was a year of God showing his faithfulness to you. Because forgetfulness leads to wasted pain. As we leave the season, restaurants are opening, indoor seating is back, thank God. Another vaccine got approved. I'm not making some vaccines, get it, don't get it. That's between you and God, okay? All I'm saying is, we're on our way back. We're leaving the wilderness. And your pastor is saying, when we leave, remember that 2020 was showing you what's in your heart. Not only is forgetfulness leading to wasted pain, but let's jump down. I love this. Verse 7, for the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land. Listen, I want to believe this over you today. The Lord is bringing you into a good land. The land of brooks of water, fountains, springs, flowing out of the valleys and the hills, a land of wheat, a land of barley, a land of vines, a land of fig trees, a land of pomegranates, a land of olive trees, a land of honey, a land which you will eat bread without scarcity, a land in which you will lack nothing. a land whose stones are iron, and out of the hills you can dig up copper. And you shall eat and be full, and you shall bless the Lord for the God who gives this good land to you. Verse 11, take care lest you forget the Lord by not keeping his commandments and his rules and his statutes when I command you today. Lest when you have, hear this, lest when you've eaten and you're full, you built your homes, you're living in them, your herds and flocks have multiplied, your silver and gold have multiplied, and all you have is multiplied, then your heart will be lifted up and you will forget the Lord. Look at verse 17. Beware lest you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand. Second thing, not only will forgetfulness lead you to wasted pain, forgetfulness will lead you to pride. Listen, pride was big enough for the devil to get kicked out of heaven. It's big enough for us to fall as well. I was on the phone with a pastor who's getting ready to shut his church down because they didn't survive during 2020. He's getting ready to tell his team, we didn't make it. Did you know that 67% of senior pastors left the ministry during 2020? 67% said, I'm good. 67% said, I'm out. Talking to the pastor, he's getting ready to tell his team the church didn't survive. He's asking how we're doing, and I'm like, we're okay. He's like, what did you do this? And I start telling him, well, we made this decision, and I made this decision with the team, we did this with the staff, we did this with Sundays, and we did this, and I made this decision. I'm telling him all the things that I did. I hung up the phone, and the Holy Spirit said to me, you did what? So, whoa. Tell me again, you did what during this year? You led who during this year? You were smart enough to make what decisions during this year? You're wise enough to maneuver what during this year? And if you're not careful, at the end of a season, you can go, look what I've done. Look at what the power of my hand, the power of my might is at. He goes, be careful, church. When you get your money back, your multiplied is happening. Your herds are multiplying. Your gold is multiplying. You are full from all the wheat and the barley. You're living in your homes. You're living in the land. I warn you, church, when you get there, do not open your hand and go, look what I have done. And if we're not careful, forgetfulness will lead us to pride. I want to remind you today, it wasn't because you were that smart. It wasn't because you were that clever. It wasn't because you were that wise. It was because the Lord put his hand on your life and said, move this way. Make that decision. I'll keep the job. I'll protect the marriage. I'll protect your kids. Let us I feel like preaching. Let us remind ourselves 2020 was not, look at me. It was, the Lord is faithful. Every step of the way, when things were getting multiplied, it was because of the Lord. How did you survive? The Lord was faithful. Whew, this got me. Last night I was crying downstairs. Shut up. This got me deep. And go and possess the land that the Lord swore to your fathers. There is faithfulness you are experiencing because somebody bestowed it upon you. Did you know that multiple times in the Bible, the Lord says, because of my servant David, I'll do it. Hundreds of years after David died, he would say to his children, because of my servant David. Do you know what it tells me? Some of you right now, I feel this. You received faithfulness over this year because of your grandmother. You received faithfulness here because your father made a decision 30 years ago to stow up faithfulness for you. Some of you received things this year because of your fathers. It wasn't even because of you. It wasn't because of your decisions. It wasn't because of your wisdom. It was 30 years ago your grandma decided to consecrate herself, set herself apart, and go, Lord, I am being faithful to you. And the Lord is now responding because I made a promise to your dad. My mom's dad, who was an orphan in Australia, raised by the Salvation Army as an orphan, never knew his parents. When he graduated, went to the army because he had nothing else to do. Felt a call to teach and preach. Had a bus ride to work and back. So he started writing books on his bus ride to work as an orphan. It made a decision. My life is no longer my own. Gets married, has 2 kids, moves to America, starts a Bible college that I then graduate from 30 years later. Have me and my sisters, I guess, but me. And now Cruz is being raised in a house because my grandfather made a decision. Cruz is the recipient of somebody else's faithfulness. Some of you might want to thank God today. You know what? It might even because of me. I could have made a bunch of mistakes, but Grandma, thank you for setting some time aside. Dad, thanks for raising me in church. Mom, thanks for putting the time aside. Great grandma that I never met my whole life, I'm a recipient because you decided to be faithful. Because, by the way, I've been faithful because I told your dad I would do it. I told your dad I'd be faithful. That's why I'm being faithful to you now. And if we're not careful, church, we can leave this saying, look at what I've done. Look at what my hand and my might and my power has done. He goes, when you get there, don't forget the Lord. When you get your business back, don't forget the Lord. When you get back in school, don't forget the Lord. When you're off furlough and you get your money back, don't forget the Lord. Get everything we've been wanting for 40 years. Don't forget the Lord. My Bible's gone. But verse 19, look at verse 19. 18, 19, what is it? And if you forget the Lord and go after other gods and serve them and worship them, I solemnly warn you today that you shall perish. The third thing you do, remember, is forgetfulness will lead you to misplaced worship. That's the result. If you lead a life that's forgetful, it leads you to misplaced worship. Worshiping my boss, worshiping some of you are like, well, I don't worship other gods. Whatever you sacrifice for, you worship. So some of you have been worshiping your intellect for a while. You've been worshiping your maneuvering of your leadership and your business for a while. We don't view them as gods, but have they replaced the one that deserves the worship? Notice it's a stumbling result. If you forget about me, you think it's all you'll start worshiping people that don't deserve it. Do you know what we're doing today? What do we have to celebrate? That God was faithful. That God was faithful. Look at Psalm 19. Psalms 119, apologize. Psalms 119, verse 90. Psalms 119, verse 90. Do we have that? Psalms 119, verse 90. Your faithfulness endures all generations, and you've established the earth. I'm believing today that some of your children are going to be the recipients of decisions you made in 2020. Man, I felt about leaving church. I felt about leaving God. When I was in my home and God was nowhere and I was by myself and I was isolated, couldn't be at church, I couldn't serve. I was teetering on the decision of leaving God. I was teetering on the decision of just leaving the church as a whole. I was teetering about ever going back again. I was teetering. No one called me. No one checked in on me. I felt isolated. I felt alone. I was right there. I was teetering about leaving. I was teetering about quitting. But man, my children will be the recipient of my steadfast faithfulness, because his faithfulness goes from generation to generation. From mom to dad to great-grandfather to my children are going to be the recipient because I decided to go, Lord, I'm going to be faithful, be steadfast. What are we celebrating today? That God was faithful. I came to remind you today, friends, when you look back on this year, Don't give glory where glory is not due. Don't give praise where praise is not due. When we leave this season, let me be like Moses. When we get back to doing life again, when we get back to jobs and schools and families and restaurants and vacations and back in the church, let us look back and go, God, he was faithful, he was true, he was consistent. If you've been teetering today, I came to remind you, God has been faithful. If you've been teetering about going in and out, I came to remind you today, he's been faithful. He's been faithful to your job, he's been faithful to your marriage, he's been faithful to your kids, he's been faithful to your resources, he's been faithful to us, he's been faithful to the church. I came to remind you today, we serve a faithful God. He says what he's going to do. He's fulfilling what he says. He is faithful. And today, oh man, we came to celebrate. My God, you are faithful. You are true. You are constant. You are steadfast. Your promises are true. Come on, church, let's sing this together.